Hello everyone and welcome to Cappuccino with HR. My name is Rudi Bauer, and after 40 years in business, I'm 100% sure that the success of companies is directly related to the passion of the people working for these companies. With the Cappuccino of HR, we created a format where we really invite people. It's HR leaders, it's recruiters, it's talent acquisition guys, and we're talking about all the different kind of topics, and the range is going from AI, of course, to new work, to leadership, and all the challenges along the way.
Yeah, hello and welcome to another episode of Cappuccino with HR. And today I'm really delighted to talk about a topic which I think becomes more and more important. We have called it Beyond Paychecks, designing reward systems for a meaningful employee experience. And I think we never touched this topic, and I'm really happy to talk about this today. And I have a really nice guest, and I was really looking forward. And it took some time of preparation as well, as this guy is really busy. But we have Kent Frederiksen, and he's the vice president of rewards at Lego Group. So, Kent, it's a pleasure to have you in the show. Hello and welcome.
Thank you so much, Rudi, and thank you for the invitation and chance to talk about this very important topic.
And before we start, Kent, may I ask you to briefly introduce yourself in a few sentences?
Yes, my name is Kent Frederiksen. I'm Danish, live in Denmark. I'm the head of reward for the Lego Group as a job, married to Camilla, 2 wonderful children, and enjoying life, and especially the job I'm doing, which I believe adds a tremendous amount of value to any company.
Amazing. And I have to ask you this question as well, as this podcast is called Cappuccino with HR. So I'm asking this question all of my guests. What's your favorite coffee, Kent?
Oh, I've got a few. So it all depends on the situation. Typically at work, well, we've got the privilege of having access in our hub offices to barista coffee. I typically have an Americano with a bit of milk in it to take the acidity out and just make it a bit smooth. My go-to in other places would be a flat white, but it depends, because they can't be too big, they can't be too small.
Okay.
And then, at the end of a good meal, especially from a certain country, a double espresso is also goes a long way.
It's very close. It's very close to my taste line, so I'm very similar. Same kind of. I take the same kind of approach. We have chosen a topic which I think we are talking about individualization a lot. We're talking about different kind of generations in the labor markets. We're talking about different kind of needs, and I think it's the first time that I really saw it, even in the job title, that there's a special position which is really taking care about rewards. And why do you think that this has become so important?
Well, it goes without saying, I think reward has always been important, and there are many functions like myself out there doing a great job making sure that companies can attract and retain and engage employees throughout the year. Salaries are needed to make a living for most people. For the last few years or 10 years, maybe you've seen a cost increase or inflation increase, and people have had to adapt to that. And for sure, this function is key in making sure that the cost of living, keeps up with, or salaries keep up with cost of living. So that's just, it's become hugely important. At the same time, the inherent challenge with that is to manage the cost of the company. If you're a production company, it's unit cost you have to manage. You just can't keep adding on, because then products become more expensive, and there has to be a great balance.
But is reward for you just money, or is there a lot of more things in it?
Well, for sure, you talk about rewards and you talk about recognition, and the mix between the two and how the balance should be. I don't believe in either or. It's both and. Whether or not it's intrinsic or extrinsic motivation as well. You add them together to optimize everything, and hopefully in any company you combine that. The interesting bit that I find, at least, is that reward is important, but it's and again, it's not either or, but research over time has shown for people to be highly engaged and retained in companies, you have to have a great leader. You have to have a great team. Ideally, I call it a best friend, or the literature calls it a best friend, but it's a great colleague. You need to be in a situation where you feel developed, heard, recognized. And recognized, again, is not just monetary, but it's also a simple thank you, right? It could be a simple dinner, many different things that you need to get. And then ultimately also you need to, of course, feel that you've got a fair pay and you've got access to regular increases. And if you've got those right, those factors, which basically reward plays a, as Daniel Pink says, get the topic of pay off the table. Then you focus on having a great job and colleagues. That's what's important. Yeah.
And I mean, how important is it to keep the system as flexible as possible? Because I mean, in Austria we have these kind of yearly salary increases, which are more or less forced by labor force and by governments, and there's a kind of an initial round every year where they are sitting down and discussing the new levels, and then it's a kind of you get a slight salary increase every year because it's meant to also compensate inflation, but it's also meant to give a kind of a to react on the needs from the market. But how could you keep that flexible? Because I think needs are changing throughout the year as well. So that, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's not only a thing of it needs to happen in October.
Yeah, so when I joined the Lego Group 7 years ago, there was a system in place where we only promoted or recognized people. Well, you can argue three. We had the annual merit, which has run every single year in April, and it still does, and it's solid, it's good. It's needed to keep up with market trends, which includes cost of living, inflation, etc. So that's in my you should never get rid of that. Now, on top of that, we had this system where you could only be, recognized in 2 different months in the year. We dismantled that after a while and introduced a more flexible approach where you could be recognized in every single month. So be it for a stock bonus, a salary increase, or what we call in-role promotion, where your job grows and you should be recognized for that. So that brought flexibility. So we basically run the annual merit, which is an annual check-in and goes for all. And then, exceptionally, or for those who, have warranted it, we go in and review it extraordinary throughout the year if it's true. So that's an inbuilt flexibility to recognize when needed and when.
And I mean, you have an amazing strong brand. I mean, Lego is probably one of the strongest brands out in the world, and it's probably kind of purpose is kind of given as well. And then you probably have this kind of it's an honor to work for this great company. I think so. Probably that's already enough. Yeah?
It helps us immensely to have that brand.
But what is your tip for companies that are not in this kind of strong position to set it up and to start? Where have you started at Lego when you joined a couple of years ago? What was the first initial steps? Does it start with analyzing? Does it start with talking to people? Where should people start implementing a kind of a reward strategy?
Well, I think fundamentally, it depends on where the company is, right? So to your point, if it's a small entrepreneurial company, maybe you can't afford to pay high salaries. Maybe you need to structure the strategy around some, like maybe in 5 years' time, you get 10% or 1% or 0.5% or less of the company if you are still here, right? So that some do that, and some get very highly engaged to that. You still need to survive and pay for rent and food, etc., and family if you have that. So it all depends, but that's for sure. That's the extreme version where there's some elements to that. Then you have the more mature companies where you need to find out, what does the market do in your sector, and that's basically how you deduct where do you get your people from. Where do they, if they leave you, where do they go to? So you need to have that intelligence available so that you know in which field you're operating. And then based on that's how you set up the parameters to pay. Maybe you don't need a variable pay scheme because that's not practice, But if it's practice for other companies and people are leaving you because of that, so I think you build a strategy out of intelligence, and that comes with collaborating across organizations, the functions within the organization, like your talent or recruitment. What are they hearing when they recruit people, etc. So it comes to a lot of different functions collaborating to make sure things work. Talk to your people partners, talk to leaders, etc. Get a feel for what's going on. But foremost, you lead by data, and then you decide separately as per the strategy you want to have.
And I mean, we're talking about individualization, and I've already mentioned the topic because what I see is that people are looking for individualization. They're looking for probably tailor-made solutions for themselves. Do you think it's important to react on the life situation of the employees as well with the rewarding systems that you have in place? Because I mean, in Austria, it's probably going wrong at the moment, or in many countries, because you earn less when you're young and you earn more when you become older. If you look on the life cycle, and if you look on the investments that you have taken as a young, it's probably should be the opposite. Have you adapted?
Yeah,
but, I mean, you need an apartment, you need a house, you're founding a family. So I mean, at the end of the day, I think it probably we are running it wrong, because at the end of the day, I think it should be totally the opposite. I mean, I'm turning 60 next year, so my needs are really much lower than they have been with 25 and 35.
Yeah. Isn't that, if we could only live our life backwards, right? And take my advice when we're 60, or I'm 51, right? So, I can certainly see what I did. It's become a philosophical conversation instead of a war conversation. But sometimes I'm a huge fan of philosophy, and I am quite, read a lot about that as well. So that could maybe be a different podcast. I think what's difficult is that, when you're young, you don't have experience.
Yeah.
So you come in, you're supposed to learn, and that's how it grows, right? And despite what people think that, pay and age doesn't correlate, 100% they do. Of course they do, because it's correlated to the experience and the work that you come and the value you provide.
Yeah.
If you're young, just out of university, if that's your choose, or if it's a craft or whatever in the production line, if you don't know what you're doing, you're not adding the same value as someone who's been doing that job for 30 years. So of course it's correlated, but I get your point. It would be nice to have more money when you're young, because that's when you're struggling, right? When you get to our age, then mostly maybe things are paid off. You don't need as much. You don't need that, because I've done that. I've been there. But that's the whole thing about living your life backwards. You've done it. So you can say, I don't need that. I've done it. This is what I value. So that's kind of how I see it.
I mean, I brought it to the extreme probably, but do you have some elements within the Lego system, without telling too much secrets, of course, but that are taking care about if somebody is, for example, founding a family, getting a baby, or having some other
100%. So
okay.
That's not.
Could you name some examples?
Yeah, with pleasure, and that's not a secret. I don't want to say brag about it, because we don't do that, but for sure we've got tons of benefits that are aligned to that. We're just doing a huge benefits campaign right now, both infusing some of the Lego spirit of play and innovation in there, where I've made a video where I go around and I goof around, or the wonderful communications department doing it actually make bloopers in there, and most people actually appreciate the bloopers in the video when we talk about the benefits we have, and we talk about we call them global signature benefits that are aligned to our purpose and values of bringing play to children and adults, because they like our products a lot, fortunately, as well. So it's aligned with how we want to be perceived, and the fact that we are in the world to produce play experiences for children. And in that sense, we have a global parental leave, for the 28 weeks fully paid for primary, or mothers, as we like to call it, both, to be inclusive, and then for men, secondary provider, depending on your family situation, of 8 weeks globally, fully paid. So that is universal across. 26 weeks. Sorry, my bad. But it's universal. It's from day one. it's all employee groups, factories, retail across the board. And we just did that. And we also have 4 weeks of caregiver leave, which is fully paid, that all can apply for if you have an emergency close to you and your family that's dependent on you being present. You can just pull out, a month. So that, and we've got tons of other stuff that we do as well that's aligned to our purpose and mission and values as a company. And especially the Kirk owner family, who's very engaged in making sure that we are a good company. That's what we want to do, or be, sorry. And hence our, yeah.
And have you done some, of course, I mean, I'm sure you have done some measurements how this pays into recruiting and talent acquisition on one hand, and also in retention?
Yeah, so for sure, because we have these, like 10, 15 global signature benefits that carry across, you can use that in all our job adverts because everybody gets them. Everybody has the bonus.
Yeah.
So back to the purpose and mission of the company, all employees in the Lego group have an annual bonus.
Okay.
Where you are measured on group KPIs
Mm-hmm.
for majority of your weighting.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 10 objectives, half of them would be group. So we're all connected to the group doing well. You could argue it's a huge profit sharing part, but it's not just that, because there are also a team and individual elements. And that's because we believe that when we succeed together, we all succeed, right? So it makes sense. And hence we all profit when the company profits. And that's a huge part of where we are. It also going to pay transparency, right? Where, we all paid the same, rewarded proportionately the same. Recognized.
Mm-hmm. So you are also, it sounds that you're also extremely transparent, and that would be my next question. How important is being transparent as an employer? Because that's a big discussion in Austria, it's a big discussion in Germany, it's a big discussion. There's a new law coming in place, I think, at European Union level from beginning of next year, that there needs to be salary transparency. How transparent are you with all the salary information and reward information to all the employees?
So we have not been transparent as per the EU directive coming in June 26, as you were alluding to, but we will, of course, get there. There's a lot going on in the 27 EU membership countries.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Some, Netherlands went out and said, we'll postpone this until January 27.
Yeah.
Other countries are maybe advancing a bit. So it's going to be a challenging landscape to navigate in as a company. Some companies have gone out and just started implementing, putting salary ranges in job adverts, which is one of the potential requirements that could come from individual countries. So we're navigating that. We're not there yet. We like to talk openly about pay, and we are moving into that with our SharePoint, where we have all kinds of information available. How do you set salaries? How do you get promoted? How am I recognized? What is the annual equal pay survey we do, which we've been doing on a global scale for 6 years now. We post that. We post where there are differences and how many we found in this, how many we took action on. So all that is available to all who can log on to our SharePoint. Typically, the challenges you have with this, if you navigate a full value chain, so that being hourly and salaried across, then hourly workers would tend not to have access to your SharePoints because it's through a PC and secure access, etc. And maybe you only have your own phone. We're working on that. There are some companies who do that quite well, but we for sure need to step into that to make it even more transparent. So I would call it work in progress. We're as transparent as we can be right now with the policies and the text, and then the details will come later next year.
Kent, do you see a kind of a shift beyond salary? I tried to touch this topic a little bit earlier already. Do you think we need to move from a pure financial reward system to a more holistic one?
Well, I think it's a good idea to combine them. Cash is king has been here for ages, and call it stoic or whatever. I don't think that's ever going to go away, because how are you going to pay your bills? How you pay, take your children through daycare, school, if that's your focus, the travel, the experiences, everything that you want to, you were talking about getting a house, right? When you're younger, a flat or your first baby, etc., and everything that comes with that. So cash will never die. And we see this in our surveys. We're doing annual reviews in all our factories. We've been doing that for the second year running right now, where we basically go in and review the market conditions and everything else and benchmark. We can see that if there are pockets of us being low from a retention, attraction point of view, as soon as we add more cash to it, all the KPIs improve immediately.
And is salary always the top, or is it number 2 or number 3?
Well, that's the funny bit. In all the surveys you read, if cash is not on top, it's probably an HR professional who's filled it out and not employees themselves. I remember seeing something from Volvo years ago where they did a big investigation, and if you asked management or the leadership, etc., what was most important, it was purpose, values, and all that, which is super important for a company to thrive on and make sure you're consistent on creating a fair environment, etc., like we do as well with we call them leadership playground behaviors. Brave, curious, and focused is hugely important to us because it provides a common leadership and language for us to navigate. Hugely important. But we then ask employees about what's most important, and especially the hourly area. Generally, other topics tend to hit the top one spot, and that is base salary, career development, training, etc., good leaders, etc. But when you ask leadership, it just goes like this a bit.
Okay. Yeah.
Because of different dynamics that are in there. I'm a leader. I need to talk from a different vantage points, right? So it's inherent in there. So you have to be careful who you listen to when they say. But I would argue, getting the right salary is also, if you apply for a new job, the only thing you can more or less be very sure of that what you're getting is the salary. Think about that. You don't know your colleagues. You don't know your new leader. You don't know the pure culture of the company or your actual job before you actually get it. So the one thing you do know is your salary.
And even that is not true if you look on job ads where it's not mentioned. Because you're jumping into a discussion. I mean, it's like buying a house without knowing the price, or buying a car without knowing the price, because at the end of the day, this is probably the best secret until the end, till you sign the contract. I mean, it's probably the last question in an interview is what's your salary expectations then? So, I mean,
and that's going to come with the EU pay transparency. So EU pay transparency is going to help bring that more to the forefront for sure. Now, we have to remember, we've got pay transparency in other countries. You've got a lot of states in the US. You've got it in UK, Australia, Ireland, and other countries as well that are far advanced here as well. So it's not just EU, just to remember that. So with this dialogue is definitely pushing the agenda on the transparency of these conversations.
I mean, we are doing a big survey every year for our developer community. I mean, we're currently reaching out to approximately 2 million software developers all around the place. And we are doing a big survey every year, or more or less every year, where we ask between 1,300 and 1,500 of them all over Europe. And we ask them for the trends. We ask them what's becoming important. We ask them what they see as a kind of the next upcoming necessities. And what we saw between 2019 and 2024, when we did the last one, was that it was really shifting a little bit. I think in 2019, and of course it has to do with market stability, it has to do with how is economy and growth. In 2019, it was working for the big brands and earning a lot of money, and it was mainly driven by companies from the Bay Area, and of course the big startups and unicorns in Europe. And everybody wanted to work for Google or Zalando, and probably Lego as well. And then it shifted. And what we saw in 2024, and it was really surprising for us as well, was that mental health, well-being, and personal development has massively increased. So I think if times are more unsecure, if jobs are more unsecure, we also saw a shift that probably money stays important. Of course, I fully agree we have to pay the bills, but I think personal development is becoming extremely important. Mental health is becoming extremely important. Do you see that within your observations as well?
Oh, that's such a difficult question to answer clearly across, I don't know, 193 countries or seven in the world,
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
I know you know that, but it's just I'm just stating it. So I think what's happening right now with the world's demographic changes, that's it's going to be so interesting to see the evolvement over the next just 10 years. We're going to see already seeing countries decline in population. You're going to see huge demographic shifts from the baby boomer generation, right, that are retiring within the next few years. That's a rolling thing that happens. It's not just a cliff retirement, but that group is so big that they're going to leave a huge gap. At the same time, you're seeing birth rates across the world dropping on average significantly, with like South Korea below 1, close to zero point 0.7 per woman, children born per year, right? You've seen Japan declining for years. You've got uncertainties in China with the one-child policy. These are big economies that all of a sudden, in 10, 15 years' time, are going to have huge gaps in available workforces. And I think that's going to play out for another 50 years, if you've seen on the math, right? So that's going to be hugely interesting on the ability to attract and retain, because this is where it comes down to. So whether or not individuals want this or that, if the company isn't offering it, you need to go. Well, if you don't want that, you need to go and find what you seek elsewhere. Hopefully, you find something that aligns with your values, etc., and then what you're seeking overall. Now, I think coming out of COVID, the flexible working has kind of exploded, right? And as a Lego group, we went into that and said, listen, we're going to have a simple policy. You're going to be on average 3 days in the office, and then optionally 2 at home. So coming from 5 days down to 3 in the office, optionally 2 at home, and still remembering and respecting that more than half of our colleagues can't work from home because they work in our shops, at the reception, doing jobs that are on site and you cannot do from home. And let's not forget, more than 13,000 hourly workers in our factories. They can't work from home, and they, if any, would struggle. So navigating all that, providing the flexibility as the company wants and needs it, because you can't look at this in isolation. Once you do make that decision, then you make decisions on having nice office space, like cups. And I told you about the wonderful privilege of having a barista here. We can just go down and our coffee is free. Yeah, we don't charge for it, so it's super nice. But if you then allow people to work from home 5 days a week, there's no one in the office. And
Yeah.
when you make real estate agreements, right, you need to sign leases for 10 plus years.
Mhm.
Right? You can't just get out of that contract. So you
Yeah, of
commit
course.
to a lot of expenses. Now, then
Yeah.
you say that, then you want people in. So it kind of goes in a vicious
Yeah.
circle if you don't follow up on that.
Yeah.
And of course, people see if there's a huge talent demand,
Mhm.
you can demand whatever. And maybe if you're an entrepreneurial company, you don't have the brand, you don't have the money, then you may, back to your question on the reward strategy, then you need to design a strategy that fits that.
Mhm.
But if you're a company of a high value, so you see all the tech companies, so there's another company who just announced, yes, back to the office again, right?
Yeah.
So all these companies did all kinds of stuff during COVID to survive, or call it whatever, are now flip-flopping.
Mhm.
Now, I can imagine that's a big issue for a lot of employees who've moved far away and just could remote work, right?
Mhm.
But I would argue that trend is shifting in big multinational companies, where that flexibility is somewhat narrowing in from
Mhm.
a remote work perspective. But then again, as a Lego group, for example, we have huge flexibility.
Mhm.
Not just that fact for those who can and are
Yeah.
privileged to do so, but then you can also get all kinds of flexible arrangements, if you need it in life,
Mhm.
right? So it all depends, but that for sure is a bigger part of it. But can I just say, in my experience, it goes across all generations.
Mhm.
This is not just a younger generation or Gen whatever C or It's baby boomers as well. It's all generations who want
Yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah.
Right. Because
yeah. Do you think that your employees are taking this kind of getting 2 days, the possibility of getting 2 days working from home as a kind of a reward as well, or is it a given?
Let's call it a mix.
Okay.
Some clearly don't want to work for us if they can't work from home.
Mhm.
That from that point, it's a given.
Mhm.
We have some, of course, where the job is here and they can't work from home, and funny enough, they take it still.
Mhm.
So I think we, as in individuals, we also need to come to terms with, listen, it's a job, right? And the job is here. If you want it, these are the conditions. You can't bargain with that, right? And then, what we see also, and I've got different friends and colleagues who work for different companies where it's fully remote. I think that brings it brings a different culture. Now, if you want that culture, go seek it.
Yeah.
Right. That's not the culture that we want. It's not the culture. And I'm talking about the owner family, the Kirk family. I'm talking about the senior executive leadership group, who they don't want a culture like that. So they've defined what we want, and hence that's what we are living and doing and upholding as well. We hold people accountable to that.
So that means, I mean, if somebody is thinking about getting the reward system right, it has to start by the wanted culture. Is that right? Because I think, as far as I understood it now, is if you have a clear definition of the culture that you want to have within your organization, you have the next step then could be to put the right reward system in place, which feeds that kind of cultural growth as well.
100%. I have a saying, and maybe someone said it before. I don't know, but I say that reward is culture in action. Right? Because whatever you reward, that's what you get. So now we say that our bonus program is very much about we're all in the same boat. We use the wording "succeed together." That's culture. It's not you getting it because of you, right? You get it because we all succeed. And then there's the family values that we assume when we do the parental leave, the caregiver leave, flexibility in general, right? We're luckily and have been growing for the last many years. That brings a lot of good things with it as well. We invest heavily, so and we have a general culture of wanting to do good. The whole the setup of the Lego group is that we have a foundation that gets 25%. The Lego Foundation is called, that gets 25% of the profits every year, where they basically just donate that or put it into research as to for children and learning, right? So that's culture in itself, right? And how you behave as well. Yeah.
Fully agree to the point. Yep. I mean, as we're living in a time where AI is coming into every single parts of our businesses and observations, how is AI helping you and organizations to put to understand employee preferences and put the right reward systems in place? Do you use it proactively? Where do you use it? How do you use it?
The last place I want to play around with AI and make mistakes is a reward. Reward people tend to be a bit conservative, because if you mess up in someone's pay, they tend to mind, right? You can play around in other processes where it doesn't have that, contractual, obligation immediately, or not being able to pay your rent that month because reward messed up and you missed payroll, and then, whoops, now we don't do payroll. That's our dear colleagues in our BSO who does a wonderful job in making sure that works every single month with very few issues. It's like kudos to them for sure, 100% for all the work that they just continuously do. I think our digital area is working hard on making sure that we have a uniform approach to AI across, because again, reward shouldn't be inventing digital tools of any kind without it fitting into the overall digital portfolio across the board. We are looking into elements of it, but I think it's such a small scale that it's not worth talking about really. I don't have any AI tools other than, yes, people use ChatGPT or for text verification or job adverts. Maybe you can, you can write job descriptions quicker. I'm not aware of any company who's doing anything at scale and seriously that's game changing in reward right now. Of course, it's a debate in the network I sit in, but anything serious around this, not yet. And we should be very careful about doing anything with that. So I read this article the other day. There's a lot of talk about AI out there. Whether or not it's actually going to bring value or not. We're spending a lot of money on it for sure. Server capacity, the sustainability and issues with all that as well. So I don't have an answer. We're not doing it yet. We're looking into it and playing around with it and to see if we can, innovate with it, but not yet.
Will that change? I mean, because there will be probably if the transparency thing goes live, and in a couple of years from now there will be extreme amount of data available as well. Then it could probably help to get a kind of a better overview, getting an analysis and understanding the market much better. That could probably be an
100%, and not just the market is one thing, right? That's a fair point, and that's of course we should already be doing, but the automation of it. And also, as the market providers of market data becomes more AI fluent as well, because I can tell you many of them are not. Right? They are also figuring out what this means. Data protection is a huge part of this. GDPR.
Yeah, of course.
How do you navigate this automation and where data flows, etc.? So I was maybe that's the biggest hindrance. The legislative area of this is the biggest hindrance for doing automation. Then you go into so I think that's a big challenge.
Do you see a really essential reward innovation coming up in the next decade? Something which you see as a kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, which will say, okay, if we come there, that would be amazing. Is there something?
Well, this is the fun. So an area that should be innovative. So where are you as a company? The Lego Group does not have an issue attracting, retaining, or anything on average. We have pockets as well. We actually have more than 1,200 people working in software development in the Lego Group. I think it's about 1,200. We've got a huge development area, which we've been growing over the last years. Maybe not all doing programming, but it's a big digital department that we actually have our area in the Lego Group. So over the coming years, so if we innovate, I would argue it's something that relates back to improving the ability to attract and retain, being able to hire quicker, right? And still at a reasonable, sustainable cost level. I think reward professionals out there should be more engaged with the organizational health, making sure that you're building an organization for the future that is also sustainable from a cost perspective. How much is your revenue growing? How much is your cost growing relative to that? So you constantly keep that in check. And if you're not, that's definitely where you should be stepping in to become a partner with finance. And of course, making sure that all areas collaborate on that. Innovation within this area is staying on top of market trends and development. Don't be caught out on that, because it's not worth seeing, how far do you want to go regarding to turnover increasing, your recruitment lead time going up, because every single time you can't recruit someone or someone leaves a gap and puts pressure on it. And if there's anything that's coming going forward in the next 2 decades or so, it's a declining talent pool, and you have to relate to that. If you don't have a strong brand, maybe the only way you can get out of that is paying your way out or extreme flexibility. But just other stuff just comes with it. So you can make both work. Of course you can. It's just a different culture, because clearly companies are, right?
And right. We are coming to the end, Kent, unfortunately. I mean, the timer is showing me that we have to come to an end, but I want to do 2 things, which I do with my guests normally. The first one is, if Aladdin with his magic lamp would show up with you today, do you have one wish? based on rewards, what you could mention or would give to him as your big wish?
For myself, or sorry, say that again.
However you like. Aladdin is there and is saying Kent one wish for free.
Well, one wish really, that would be peace on earth.
A really cool one. Really cool
Yeah,
one.
so I think I've read the book by Daniel Pinker,
Yeah.
The Angels of Our Nature, I think it's called.
Yeah.
We live in the most peaceful time on earth, and this is a very historical perspective.
Yeah.
I know there's a horrible situation in Ukraine, and
Yeah.
luckily, hopefully, Middle East or Israel, Gaza is settling down as well.
Yeah.
But we live in a very peaceful time. I know there's all kinds of stuff going on, but we're getting older. We live longer. There's prosperity across the board. Let me ask you a simple question. What is the average age of life expectancy in the world? Is it 55, 65, or 75?
Probably it's 55.
It's 75.
It's 75. Okay.
Yeah. So, we're actually living in a good place, but, war is horrible.
Yeah, for sure.
And let's get rid of that.
Yeah, really cool one.
That's my
and the last thing what I want to do is I have prepared us a couple of this or that questions. So I really would ask you 2 or 3 or 4 of them, and would ask you to really not think, just give me a quick answer on it. Is it a pay raise or an extra week off?
Pay raise.
Career growth opportunities or higher base salary?
Career improvements.
Okay. Flexible work hours or fully remote Fridays?
Flexible.
Okay. And same perks for everyone or highly personalized perks?
Same perks for everyone.
Okay. Kent, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for this really inspiring discussion. I really enjoyed it. I think it gave a really kind of, for me in the head, it sorted a lot of things which are always tied to it. So I normally use the term compensation instead of salary, and then it explains it a little bit for me, because then it becomes compensating for something. And if culture is not right, if colleagues are not right, if leadership is not right, compensation becomes more and more important. That was always the explanation for myself, and it fitted to myself, honestly. So I was always, money became more important if other things went wrong. But you really opened up a lot of new thoughts in my head. So thank you very much for that. And it was a pleasure. Dear audience, please stay tuned for what's coming next, and have a great time. And thank you so much. Bye-bye, Kent.
Thank you for watching Cappuccino with HR. If you enjoy this kind of conversations, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Then you get all this kind of upfront information, your upcoming episodes, and all my nice guests. Cappuccino with HR is brought to you by We Are Developers, Europe's #1 developer community and a leading platform for connecting HR and companies together with developers. If you want to learn more, visit us on wearedevelopers.com. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time on Cappuccino with HR.